Yo, yo, it's time to discover the flow. Shout out to the bros. You know, I like to welcome everybody to discover the flow. No matter how you discover the show or discover the bros, now you about to see how far we can go, because it's time for discover the flow. Yeah, cowabunga do. You know live is how we come to you. Turn the levels up when you hear the boys coming through. The Pod Squad giving you just what you need, hitting you with a new special guest every week. Don't you dare hit skip, man, it's Tristan and Kip. DTF Pod about to take you on a trip. Mega Ran bring the heat, yeah. But be clear, I wasn't even supposed to be here. Welcome to Discover the Flow. No matter how you discovered the show or discovered the bros, now you about to see how far we can go, because it's time for Discover the Flow. Let's start the show.
So, Mr. Bernardin, the last time we had you on, you were afraid of talking about some things because of the Marvel snipers, as you so eloquently put
Indeed.
it.
They'll be always shadowing me, hovering above, like Henry Hill and Goodfellas.
But the beauty of this interview today is I think we get the chance to talk about some of those things because they're no longer targeting you right now.
Now it's a year later, and now it's all
because it released. One of the big things that we'd like to talk about, I think, is Eyes of Wakanda.
Yeah.
Phenomenal work.
Thank you.
You wrote episode 2 and 3.
Correct.
Of Eyes of Wakanda.
Yes.
What was that experience like for you?
It was both incredibly surreal, because when you get the call to be like, hey, would you like to come spend some time in Wakanda? It is incredibly difficult to say no.
Right.
Thankfully, it was. There's not a ton of things I'm thankful about the pandemic and the lockdown and all that, but I was able to do a couple of things at the same time because it was all on Zoom. So the Eyes of Wakanda room was happening during the day from like 10 to 4 in the afternoon, and then I was then simultaneously able to work on the Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra video game, which would meet from like 4:30 to like 7 every day. So there's been a lot of time in Wakanda.
Not a bad place to be.
Not a bad place to be. Healthcare is great.
Quick side question: did that game ever come out actually, or did it get side?
It's coming out next spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember hearing about that, and I was all
especially in the video
game
world, things get delayed.
Yeah. Everything gets kind of just kicked down the can a little bit, and then everybody's afraid of GTA 6. So
that was the big one. But GTA 6 supposed to be coming out just around this time originally.
Mm-hmm.
People were completely freaking out. So they pushed it out, and then GTA pushed it out. I almost feel like that's strategic.
And I'm sure GTA is going to keep pushing and pushing until they get it right, because they'll spend all the money to make all the money.
You're kind of flipping out.
I don't think they're hurting too bad, especially considering, I think, what was it, the last game made about $11 billion.
They're fine.
Take Two and Rockstar, I don't think we'll ever have a problem in perpetuity at this point.
No, for real.
They would have to severely take a dump all over everything that they've ever created.
But yeah, it was really fun to be in that room, just trying to figure out, what's the story we're going to tell for Eyes of Wakanda. Knowing early on it was going to be an anthology. So then when do we want to set these stories in Eyes of Wakanda? How do we want to, where in the grand history of the MCU do we want to start dropping in and out of? And what is Marvel's appetite for playing in the MCU? I think very early on we knew that we wanted a Trojan horse, we wanted an Achilles story,
which was amazing,
which was super fun to get to do. And then there was a question of if we're gonna play it all with the rest of the MCU, when do we want to do it? It should feel like history, but when in history, and what gives us opportunities, and what doesn't Marvel want us to touch? Early on we had conversations about the Eternals before anybody had seen the Eternals, but that was also a story that they were playing with the entirety of history, and when does it intersect with Eternals? You want an Eternal in it? I don't know. Maybe. Is there one that's going to be cool, one that's going to break out, and you just got moved away from it?
Which I think they put one of the Eternals into the Zombies series very briefly, but
yeah.
I think that's what we figured out was
there was
a huge fight.
There was a giant fight that they said just goes on over the Midwest or something like that between Captain Marvel and the other guy. Mm-hmm. And the other guy was an Eternal character that I just didn't know.
I think it was Icarus or something like that. But
something like that.
Not a huge Eternals guy. Never really cared.
Not sure there is a huge Eternal guy.
I mean, there wasn't never big Guardians fans either, but
Until they made
got
big Guardians.
yeah, it was a failed comic essentially until the movies came, and then everybody's like, oh, I love this now.
So you have some questions I know about your episode. We kind of divided and conquered.
And I love the movie Troy, so that episode really was one of the ones where I was like, whether you wrote it or not, it was going to hit me because I'm like, oh crap, I love this.
Yeah, I'm a huge Greek
noticed
fan too, so that's
the character from Wakanda, his name was Memnon, or at least his name that he was using there was. But there was an absence of the character of Agamemnon. What was that supposed to be, like a nod in some way? Or?
It is a little bit. There was also, according to the legends, Achilles, and there was amongst the Greek army trying to get into Troy, there was an Ethiopian. I think he was a prince or supposed to be a king whose name I think was Memnon. It might have been supposed like that. As we got deeper into it, the more we realized that all of history to a certain degree is somewhat conjecture and legend anyway.
I mean, that's who wrote history.
Yeah.
The guys that won.
Well,
Right.
And
For Victor
one of the
Wood
things
writes
that
history.
I love about the whole series, the miniseries as a whole, the last couple of years, I don't know if you've ever heard of something called the Younger Dryas theory, but they've been taking stuff and realizing that like the pyramids themselves in Giza, which we think are supposed to be like 4,000 years old, are possibly double that. And if there's possibly proof now that there was civilization far advanced that maybe even we were, that got wiped out, and that just everything's older and older. There's a lot of scientists now that have built their lives and their careers on what we know and what we were taught in school, throughout time, that don't want to admit to that,
Right.
because it destroys their life's work. And I get that, but more and more proof is coming out. So I like the idea, and I can get behind the idea more that an advanced civilization like Wakanda may have existed back then, because like it's going with that, and it kind of excites me.
Yeah, I mean, I just recently ran into this and again, veracity of whatever, and the internet being whatever it is, but that there was a society, a civilization in Africa, what is now Nigeria, that was making steel in like 400 or 500 BC. Like before anybody else,
before the Iron Age,
before you got to iron, they skipped straight over iron and bronze and went straight to steel.
Right.
And it's been mostly forgotten, except for a couple of artifacts you'd find. You begin to carbonate, you're like, wait a minute, this thing is older than it should be from a place that we didn't think was doing this. But how do you reconcile what had been history with what the new facts are? And that is the glorious part about science, which is it's trying to prove itself wrong.
They're starting to find things in Egypt and Africa and all throughout the world where it looks like it should have been drilled by some kind of bit or something, but there's no drill marks. It's perfect. It's smooth. There's no like breaking point in there. They're confused by it because they're like, we don't even know how to do that now.
Yeah, and so like so much of Eyes of Wakanda was driven by, Ryan Coogler, who was executive producer and is the keeper of all things Wakanda in the MCU, like things that he was interested in, things that he was kind of captivated by, things that he was like, hey, so I heard the story of like the sea people who would terrorize the villages on the coasts of the Mediterranean that would just show up and then cause massive damage and raid and then disappear into the waters, and nobody ever found them who they were. I was like, what if those were Wakandans? What if there was a Wakandan who was doing that? That's an episode. Todd Harris, who's the sort of supervising director and showrunner, loves kung fu. Like he's all about China. So he was like, I want to do a Boxer Rebellion episode. It's like, all right, Todd, let's find a Boxer Rebellion thing for you. And then we were like, do we want to do, like, Shang-Chi had just come out. It's like, oh, can we do, like, Wen Wu and the 10 Rings? Can it be, like, Basha, who at this point, that story was set in China. It was set in, for real, all of it was in China. Like, he was there, he gets an artifact and runs into Wen Wu, who's about to destroy this town, like it's Genghis Khan, and he's got to escape a sort of burning, village or city in China to get out. That didn't end up being where we were going. So like, well, we really like the idea of an Iron Fist. So wouldn't it be cool if we like do a Wakanda story, as a Wakanda episode?
So getting into that, because I watched it, it's fresh in my head. Watched it this morning just before we left today, And it's so Jirani,
Yes.
the character of Jirani, the first female Iron Fist. Was that who she's supposed to be?
Yeah. I mean, I think according to the lore, I'm not sure how old the stories were in the sort of Brubaker Fraction run, but yeah, that's as we're positioning it, she's the first female.
And so because all it says when you start the show, you get the episode going, it says China 1480, 1480. Is that supposed to be Kunlun?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. It would make sense that it was, but it's just one of those things. Like, I'm not sure if that's where that is because they don't actually say in the city of.
Yeah, because we're trying to hide the reveal. We're trying to keep that, to keep the suspense of who is this?
It's an Iron Fist story without blatantly hammering somebody in the face with the fact that it's Iron Fist until time.
Right. Like if you know, then you know.
Yeah.
And then we.
I mean, the little nods of her being in green and yellow, and just these little things were perfect.
Yeah, it was trying our best to be able to have our cake and eat it too, and make it so that if you didn't know anything about an Iron Fist, this still works.
Right.
But if you do know,
which is me going into it, I genuinely don't.
Yeah. The only real experience I had with Iron Fist was the short-lived Netflix series.
Indeed.
And it wasn't bad. Danny Rand is an interesting character. No, Danny Rand is an interesting character. However, to see the history of the Iron Fist and her explanation of how she became the Iron Fist. She fought the dragon. She stole the power from his heart. The really cool, just expositional things that explain what's going on.
Yeah, just kind of trying to needle drop that stuff in ways that amplify the story but don't replace the story.
And are still organic. Yeah,
because we wanted the story to be, it's a James Bond story. Like it opens like a Bond movie where he's James Bond in the middle of an action scene, waking up and there's the Bond girl that he's leaving in the middle of the night to get his treasure to run away. But now the Bond girl is more formidable than Bond is, and she wants what's hers.
And I think that's something I liked about the whole series in general is it's showing what these people had to do to protect their legacy and in their own way protect the world. Because they're going in, infiltrating places where they shouldn't be because somebody came and stole their property.
Yeah, and it's also about the great folly of Wakanda, the Achilles heel, to borrow from episode 2, is that they are so intent on secrecy to their own chagrin. Like, if they just told people.
Almost to their own detriment.
Yeah, like, all of what happens in episode 3 could have been avoided if it was just like, hey man, I gotta get this Wakandan artifact and bring it back home. And Jirani would have said, okay, I'll find a way to help you.
And Jirani flat out said it to him.
Yeah.
Said it to Basha. She goes, if you had told me what was going on, I would have gotten this for you. I would have walked in there and gone, there you go.
And it's the same way in episode 2 as well. Memnon spent upwards of, 10 years with them side by side, creating relationships. That's a lifetime for some people.
And then had to fight his best friend because trying to explain to somebody after 9 years, oh, by the way, this wasn't about me lying to you. This was my job, but we're still friends.
But he had his back in such a way that I feel like if he had explained to him, he would have understood. But then therein lies the problem because that's not as interesting.
Yeah, and if you're sitting outside the walls of Troy and you're like, okay, the what's the name? The Myrmidons.
Right.
We're going this elite group of warriors. We're going to go attack, and we're going to go. Our goal is to kill the king and queen, and take over and win the Trojan War. That's our goal. If he had said, "Hey, Achilles, I have this thing that I got to do. She's got a thing around her neck, and I need that. Can we do that?" Again, kills the whole storytelling.
Yeah, but
it's the drama of it.
It's the tragedy, which is the longer you hold a secret, the harder it is to tell. Right. And like the fact that he couldn't tell him at the beginning, and then every passing day, the closer and closer they got, the more pressure it is to be able to reveal the truth, but you can't. And so by the time you get 9 years in,
because now it's like, why didn't you tell me?
Why didn't you tell me? I thought we were close. I mean, to me, the intention of that story, it was always a romance. It was always Achilles and Memnon are lovers. And now it's even harder to then be able to say, listen, man, right? All these things we've been like, broke back Greeking our way through the war. But sorry, I gotta do this thing.
Right.
It becomes impossible. And like that's the tragedy of that story is like now I gotta kill the man that I love the most in the world, and then go home and try to be a normal ass person.
That I think that was probably my favorite part of the entire episode, is when he's sitting there talking to the director, who absolutely looked like a flat out nod to Nick Fury, just for the record, just for the record. But to sit there and say, I don't feel at home.
Yeah,
I've made my home beyond the walls. What do I do?
It's a veteran story. It's I went to war and I came back different.
PTSD.
Yeah, and nobody else here understands what I went through. And nobody else here can understand what I went through, except for Melanie, who went through it.
Right.
And even as enlightened as Wakanda wants to be, they're still not great about, therapy.
You just opened a whole new question for me a minute ago that you're not even going to be able to answer probably, because I don't know if any of us know. I know the Greeks, and it's weird, it's wildly accepted now. The Greek warriors would actually, sometimes like the men, leaving their family behind, they became lovers. Because in many ways, it's like, what are you going to protect more and more than your brother, your partner, your lover? You know what I mean? And it created like closer bonds. Like, I wonder if Trojans had any of that in them to the point where like maybe there's a chance that Memnon and Achilles were more than just brothers.
Yeah, I mean, in the classic, in the Iliad, it's Achilles and Patroclus, who's like his young best friend. They're not best friends.
Is this your war?
Yeah, Batman and Robin.
There's some questions going on.
Yeah,
but
and it's also like at that time,
and history has never shied away from that fact.
It never has.
There's a lot of conjecture that's made about that situation with warriors and their compatriots, and the Spartans having to have a woman shave her head at marriage in order to transition into married life, because you're so used to.
Yeah, but those Dora Milaje make it look sexy.
I mean, his head. Yeah, but it was like the history, the BC versus the AD, and when sort of Christian Catholic dogma comes into it and begins to cast certain lights on things. And also, like, we had conversations about, like, what is the response, what is the reaction amongst the Greek soldiers to Memnon? And, like, the Greeks were xenophobic, but not racist. You know what I mean? Like, they just didn't like outsiders.
Yeah,
it didn't matter where
you're
from.
You're not one of us.
Yeah, but it was not at all because of the color of the skin. It was because, like, if anything, you're from Ethiopia.
Yeah. And
that's weird. So it's just calibrating all of these things.
But because you're not from... You didn't come here with us. You're not one of us by nature.
Yeah.
You might be one of them.
We didn't train with you. We weren't raised with you.
Right.
We don't have that.
And they actually point that out. In the writing, you pointed that out. There was a couple of people in that group that were, you're not one of us. How do I know you're not a Trojan spy?
Right. And so we wanted to deal with that stuff head on. We wanted to be able to talk about what xenophobia looks like versus what racism looks like. We wanted to talk about how the bonds of soldiers supersede some of that xenophobia. And we wanted to just build this relationship between these two guys that is as close as humanly possible. So that, to your point, the tragedy hits harder. Yes. That when one dude has to stab another dude and watch his eyes go cold and his blood flow into a fountain.
And one of my favorite lines, coins for your ferryman.
Yeah.
Which just, because of who he is, he honors the traditions.
Oh, and he had made that promise earlier in the episode as well.
Yeah.
So he was just making good on it. But you can see, like you were saying, with the betrayal and everything, the moment he ditches up them stairs when Achilles really needs him, you can see the betrayal in Achilles' eyes and the heartbreak in both their eyes at the same time. Because he knows his mission, but there's his best friend.
You've spent the last decade of your life on a singular mission, and you have the opportunity to complete it. But now you have to make the decision whether or not the now friend that you've created, the brother, somebody you've shed blood with, possibly a lover, whatever the case may be. Now you have to make that decision.
Yeah.
And which one do I do?
And throughout the show, throughout the writing process, drilling down into what Wakanda is and who Wakandans are, and the fact that the original sin of Wakanda is secrecy, and that is what has infected everything they've done from the beginning to end. And so, sure, it's utopia, but on the flip side of utopia is dystopia. And so their original sin is secrecy, and the manifestation of that is the sitting out the slave trade. Right, like we knew we could have stopped this, but we didn't because secrecy demands that we do not take the place on the world stage. And so, how do we build the story of that civilization that would say no to doing that? And it's starting here. Like we say no to revealing the things we want to. We say no to international cooperation. We say no to all of these things.
And how different could the MCU or the Marvel universe have been if they had actually just opened those doors?
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Just open the gate a little and step in and do some things, take care of some things.
Yeah. And then, what is granted, there's a whole nother line of reasoning and thought processes of like, what does a Wakandan empire look like? Because would they have been able to stop themselves from doing too much?
Yeah.
Which is its own lovely, interesting what if story.
Because you do have to
empire where they get too big and topple.
Right.
Well, and that's the biggest problem for an empire in general is
They all become
eventually
their
you
own
lie.
size. Yeah.
Yes, you grow too big too fast. Even if it takes 1,000 years, you're still too big too fast.
I do love, and I know it's like their thing. I love that all the technology's purple. Whenever they're using technology that's out of place that they have to hide, it's all purple.
Yeah, glowy purple.
It's like, here's your little nod. This isn't supposed to be here.
Bright, just purple thing that says, "Oh wait, you can't see this. This is
Even when he
this
heals
secret."
his hand, I don't know if that's supposed to be like just some purple Bactine or something.
Yeah,
Or,
accepted dust.
like something like that. Even then, he's like,
Yes.
Well,
For the secret of people, they pick the glowiest technology.
right?
Even something as simple as using his little sight glass. When Bernardin uses his little sight glass, he takes 3 steps back, looks around, and goes, let me see if I can see what's going on.
Right.
Nobody look back here.
Ignore the largest man on the wall looking through his little eyepiece.
Yeah.
So I got one more question about this one, just because this is something that I don't know. What is basically being an executive producer look like?
To a certain degree, the hierarchy of the titles in TV, all of which require you to be a writer. So from writer to story editor, executive story editor, co-producer, producer, supervising producer, co-executive producer, executive producer, you are still a writer. And job number 1 is to write and to contribute in the room. The higher you get up on the totem pole means the more responsibility you have in addition to being a writer. So if it's a live action TV show, you're involved in casting and in post-production and in physical production, being on set and just being sort of the mouthpiece for the show, because you have spent the most time building the show as anybody else. So what the episode after this is going, what the episode before this was about. You remember the intention of the room, of the showrunner, and you can convey with a certain amount of authority what you think the showrunner would want. And that's your job. You should be a proxy for the boss. In animation, it's a little bit different because Todd Harris, who as the showrunner there and as the principal director and character designer, was doing a lot of that work. As a writer in animation, it is mostly an honorific title. I'm more like, it's a seniority thing, which is great, and I get paid a little bit more, but not much. But
A little bit more is better than a little bit less.
A little bit more is better than a little bit less. But it is just a little bit of authority to be able to speak in the room and have people take you a little bit more seriously. Unless your idea is awful, in which case everything gets sacrificed on the altar of progress.
I do have one question, and this is just a thing that I noticed, and I think I pointed it out to you when we watched it the first time. But I'm just curious if this is just a nod to the broader Marvel animation universe or not. Every so often you can catch off the horizon the Watcher.
Yeah.
Is that just a nod to the What If series and things like that, or is there actually? I know you can't divulge any trade secrets or anything, but was it just a nod, or was it a?
I think it was just they thought it was cool,
And it makes sense.
They
'cause that's
would
what you
go back and watch them all again and be like, no, I didn't miss them anywhere else. Okay.
Yeah.
There was just, I think there was one episode where he was just over the horizon, and it's a blink and you miss it kind of thing, where his outline's there and his eyes are there, and then they're gone.
Yeah, and I think it's the last episode of the show because it's the one that is very specifically about a fixed moment in time that could go either way.
Yeah.
It's do we take this artifact with us or do we leave it where it's supposed to be? And I can see why the Watcher is there because this is the entirety of the MCU.
This is the linchpin. the whole situation.
I wish Jeffrey Rush was watching over me at all times too. So
Yeah.
wouldn't want that.
I mean, he's awesome.
But it was really cool to see that. And then the tie-in, because I caught on to it very early. In the very first episode, there's when they're going through the room of artifacts.
Yeah.
I guess the best way to put it. And I saw something in there. I go, wait a minute, is that? No.
Yeah.
Why would that be there? And I said, hey, is that the axe from the first
Black
Panther movie? He's nah, that couldn't have been. No. And then we get to the very last episode, and there is Killmonger standing there with the axe. I'm just like, the tie-ins that you guys do with these things just blow my mind.
It was the how do we make it feel as if we're rewarding you for having watched the show, so we can touch against the thing that you know. And then it was also like, we kind of got to have a Black Panther in this Wakanda show. Otherwise, I might call bullshit if I was a fan. It was like, wait a minute, there's no Black Panther, there's no peanuts in my peanut butter.
Having the early Iron Fist and the potentially last Black Panther was really kind of a cool juxtaposition.
Yeah. And also trying to find, especially for the Iron Fist episode, trying to find a way to put Iron Fist in there that did not have to result in an Iron Fist Black Panther fight.
Yes.
Because that's one that you can't have a winner of. It's like Godzilla versus King Kong.
Right.
Nobody can win this fight.
You fight
contractually.
You fight to a stalemate and you move on, and then there's no payoff.
Yeah, Hobbs and Shaw cannot have a victor of Hobbs and Shaw.
But I was going to go somewhere. I completely forgot where I was going to go with that. So
that's all right. I got your back on it, because I'm just going to ask you, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, so we'll see. More Eyes of Wakanda?
That's where I was going to go too. That's the wild thing.
There's nothing but history.
Out, you caught it.
There it is. Everybody wins. There's nothing but raw turf of history to be able to play in. I haven't heard of any desire on Marvel's part to do more. I think they were very happy with it. The reviews are really good. The viewership was really good. But the MCU is weird in that when they decide to start moving in a direction, sometimes it gets sequels, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they carry it forward, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe this was just a glorious moment in time where they wanted to look back and tell some stories. I don't know.
If you could pick one more time frame to write an Eyes of Wakanda story for, one more small period, what would you? I
mean, there's two periods that I very desperately wanted to tell a story in, which is feudal Japan. I think,
which could be an amazing story.
I mean, fucking samurais and Wakandans seem like they just
fit.
They're just kind of awesome. And then there's
you could really pull kind of almost a Yasuke story. With that.
You just made me want a Black Panther Ip Man crossover.
Yeah, for real. And then there's the sort of musketeer era of France.
Ooh.
Just the
Empire, the French Empire.
Could
be that could be really cool.
If there's a way to somehow.
I can actually hear Kevin be like, "Shut up! You're giving away good ideas."
I know. Todd Harris hated, because I think we had pitched at some point, a pirate story. Because I was like, listen, man, there's nothing but the Caribbean and the high seas, and there were black pirates, and
Wakanda would have fit in perfectly there.
And I was like, and I have a deep love for Master and Commander, so be able to tell a Napoleonic era, kind of on the high seas thing. Todd was like, I don't want to see puffy shirts, and I was like, I get it, but still,
I mean, come on, D'Artagnan as a Wakandan, that could work.
That could be great. Up against Cardinal Richelieu and
Rochefort.
It could.
Isn't that the stinky cheese?
Stinky cheese.
So I'm going to do a little bit of a pivot now.
Yes, sir.
The God of War TV show.
Yes.
Where are we at on that?
Well, this is another one where I don't have Marvel snipers anymore, but now I have Sony and Amazon snipers.
Who aren't as accurate, but still deadly.
They
are definitely not stormtroopers.
Yeah.
No, but they deliver very quickly. We are in the middle of writing. It's a 2-season order. So we've done writing season 1. We're in the middle of working on season 2. Production will start next year. I have no idea when the release will be, because these things are giants and monsters. But nobody has been cast yet.
Is it supposed to be live action?
It's live action.
It's live action.
It's live action. There at some point will be a dude
I mean,
walking around as Kratos.
There's only one guy that could ever play Kratos properly, at least in voice. So
I don't know. There was the guy who did the mocap for it. You remember him? He was actually a pro wrestler. The one that from Crime Time. What was his name? The gentleman that unfortunately
Shad.
drowned.
Shad
Shad
Gaspard.
Gaspard. Unfortunately drowned saving his son.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
But he did.
But there's only
some
one voice of
work.
Kratos.
I mean, Christopher Judge.
Christopher
he's
Judge
just-
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
He's just so great, and it will be big shoes to fill.
And it's hard to look at Kratos and think of Christopher Judge and his characters that he's played.
Yeah.
Such as Stargate.
Yeah,
I mean, it just the look is so different. It's incredible.
the trick of this show, and Ronald D. Moore is our showrunner, who has an enormous amount of experience in adapting things from one medium to another, between Battlestar and Outlander, and so his philosophy is always first do no harm. Like if it works, then we don't need to fix it. And a lot of what's in the 2018 game and the Ragnarok game work. And so it's a matter of like, can we amplify it? Can we add to it? But don't break it if it's not broken. So that's kind of where we are, is figuring out like rattle testing things, and shakedown cruises.
God of War lends itself so well to being able to write because you're just mashing mythologies.
Yeah.
Hard. Like the first game was all about the Greek pantheon, and then you have the Norse pantheon, and how do they mix in?
Yeah,
It's kind of a cool concept. So.
Yeah, it's treating all the Greek stuff like it's history, but that informs who Kratos is and what he does and how he responds to having a son.
Now it's Sony.
Now it's Sony. No, it's wrong.
Last year we had Marvel just poking around while we're doing it.
Every time we're down here, we get total silence and privacy unless we're with you. It's the funniest thing. I
Everybody's
don't
welcome.
understand it, but
I'm pretty sure this is the
right.
yeah. No, we're getting.
But no, it's been a lot of fun so far. It promises to be more fun going forward. And I think if you're a fan of those games, you'll be happy with what we're doing. And if you have no idea what those games are, it is still a deeply emotional story of a father who does not know really who his son is, and a son who doesn't know who his father is. They have to go on a quest, and that quest is to bury and scatter the ashes of the keystone member of their relationship, was their mother/wife.
The one person that held it all together.
Yeah, the one person who knew both of these men for who they were, who they could be. And so I think it's a beautiful story that also lots and lots of people die.
Yes, everybody dies.
Yes.
It's a lot of great tragedies, and that's the direction it goes. They're amazing stories, but just they're not good outcomes for everybody.
No,
But
the
the best stories to tell are tragedies.
I mean, those
Comedies
are
are great and all, like the positive endings, the happy endings, all that. That's great. But real life is not.
no. I mean,
Real life is tragedy. There's a lot of bad things that happen to us as people, and I think people tend to gravitate more towards that.
and I think it's like if you can find grace in the middle of tragedy, like that, I think is when it feels the best for you, because you want your hero to lose things. You want your heroes to pay for what they accomplish, but you want them to accomplish it. Like
You saved the world, but you lost everything on the way,
yeah,
or
like
at least major things on the way.
the heroes always stand apart from the world, and they can't quite revel in its victories, and they don't quite feel the depths of its defeat. Like Luke Skywalker doesn't get to party at the end of Return of the Jedi. Like there's just some yub-yubbing, and sure, but he is still at a remove because the cost for him was personal and deep. And it's the I'm never going to know who my father really was.
Just a bunch of midget Chewbacca's dancing while he
And now,
burns his dad.
and then after that, all he has is this legacy that he now has to embody
Yeah.
and drive forward.
But he is always apart. He is never actually a member of that family again, despite the fact that his sister's there, despite the fact that his best friend is there. He's always a man outside of that particular family unit.
Beautiful tragedy of the character.
Yeah.
Love it.
Do stories like that always need an ultimate sacrifice? Like, can they have just as much of an impact without that?
I mean, kind of, yes, sort of, except we, and by we, I mean both audiences and creators, the job is to make it your characters, your hero's worst day, and worst series of days, and like bring them to their lowest, and so they can learn, because all stories are transformative, right? Character begins as this, goes through some shit and comes out of the other side as that. And so that needs to be, people don't change unless they're forced to change. People don't change unless they're ground up against the mill. And so it requires that level of sacrifice, a level of depth of devotion. And that's kind of what we want, because it's what we ourselves can never quite do for ourselves, right? Our heroes are our better versions of us. And most people can't change because it's really fucking hard.
So basically, it's like, it's like a Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
When he loses to Clubber Lang, he's got to come back, because if he just beats him right away, what does it matter? What does it mean? But if he overcomes all that, comes back, beats him, then it matters. Then he's done something. Then he's done something worth telling about and interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the first two Rocky movies, and I love them for what they are, but they're fables. I think Rocky 3 is the first one that's a real story,
right?
Because he loses badly. Everything has to change, everything about himself in order to move forward. Rocky's just Rocky in Rocky 1 and 2. Like, I'm just a palooka who lucked out and lost, and then lucked out and won. But he never had to change. He just was who he was.
And then that continues on really in Rocky 4. He lost his best friend. Like, they weren't like every day hang out all the time kind of best friends. But Apollo Creed was his mentor in a lot of ways. It was what he wanted. It was his aspiration.
And it's back-to-back loss, because in 3 he loses Nick, and 4 he loses,
And it's almost his own fault that he loses Apollo.
Yeah,
because he's holding that rag in his hand, and he can throw in the towel at any time.
Yeah,
but he makes that eye contact.
His love for his friend is what costs him his friend's life, and then it's why Creed is so effective as a kind of sideways sequel, because it's still about, can Rocky change?
Yeah.
Can Rocky be better than he was before? Can he absorb his own weakness and become the man who's going to fight one last fight?
See, that brings us back full circle to what I was saying earlier. If Rocky and Apollo were just lovers, maybe he'd have thrown the towel in and saved him.
If they could only just listen to the song of their heart.
We don't know what happened after the freeze frame artist photo.
Ding ding.
That oil painting.
There was
he did say that little ding ding.
There may be a lot more oil involved than you even know.
I mean, Rocky 3 is the gayest Rocky.
Fair enough.
I mean, when they're shuffling in sequence in shorts,
they're running on the beach in Santa Monica
in the tight
shorts. Adrian's on the
shorts.
side, like, right,
guys.
All right.
What do you want from me, Adrian?
And
I love that man.
And Paulie's just sitting there drinking a beer, watching.
Right.
Paulie's in the chair.
These people don't like me too much.
So,
that kind of brings me to a perfect place. AI can't give us that. All right? AI doesn't have that sense of humor.
AI doesn't do secretly gay stories.
No, it does overtly gay stories.
Give it time.
Give it time.
Because we're dictating.
So, the other major thing that we talked about last year and have been fascinated with the concept of is Deepest Darkest.
Yes.
Where are we at on Deepest Darkest? Because I am waiting with bated breath.
Right now we are at I hesitate to call it an anthology because anthology apparently is a bad word, but it is a story with chapters.
I like anthologies.
I mean, so do I, but the more we dug into it, the more we were like, nobody wants to talk to us if it's an anthology, because Hollywood doesn't know how to sell an anthology unless they do. And like, we have to keep telling people, Pulp Fiction is an anthology. It is. Like, they just don't call it that, but it is.
But everything's interconnected now.
But when somebody hears anthology, they immediately think Black Mirror.
Right. Or think, Twilight Zone, which is fair.
Which they're kind of on the same vein.
Yeah. It's like these are one and done stories, but this does sort of tie in with a unifying main character and all of the above.
Okay.
There were 8 chapters. We shot 2 of them. And then we'd raised a decent chunk of money on Kickstarter. We'd had a lot more money lined up on the other side of it. A lot more money disappeared. So we have been for the last 8 months, 9 months or so, just trying our best to find more money that won't disappear. We got a couple of really great leads. I'm hoping to know in a couple of weeks whether or not they're going to pan out, so we can kind of start the engine back up again. But the 2 we shot are great.
So it's not gone yet.
It's definitely not gone yet. I haven't abandoned it. The rest of the team hasn't abandoned it because we still do believe in it. And we
from what you described as the concept of it, and giving young directors and writers a chance to do things in a playground. You give them a sandbox and say, go.
Yeah, like we built a train that will carry them forward, and there's a crew that will show up and knows who they are and knows what they want to do, and we can all together help bring this train to the end of the line and then release it to the world. And I still believe in that idea, and I still believe in the idea.
I feel like we need more of that in the world, in a creative.
Yeah, and it's like if
we need that more in the world in general. But
what we're going to do now is we're going to hit the live button on YouTube and start the first hour of the Deepest Darkest Pledge Drive. You're no longer going back. You're going to stay here. No.
You can't leave now until
you're done.
Until we have all
if
of
you
your
go
funding.
upstairs, you got to send somebody back down. Send Jeremy London down for hour 2. Come on,
This is now the Deepest Darkest Telethon.
Yeah,
which sounds horrible for a name for a telethon.
it does. It's, as Kevin would say, a lot dirtier than it was intended.
But like, we were able to shoot out Rosario Dawson and Ernie Hudson, because Rosario was like, I give you 2 days and then I got to be in Star Wars for like 2 years. Okay, all right,
That's right, because they are doing the second season of Ahsoka.
Yeah, I think she literally left us in LA and then went to like whatever Pinewood Studios.
Then she went and sat in makeup for the next 12 hours.
Yeah, slash 12 months. But yeah, I still do believe in it. I still think it could be great. I think a lot of our team still agrees with what we were trying to do. It'll just depend on when we get the balance of the money we need.
I hope everything works out on that.
Who's free?
Like I said, I am waiting for it. Like since you explained the concept of it to me, I've been just dying for it.
Yeah.
I know you're the wordsmith and you're the writer here, but let's not use could be. Let's say will be.
Will be.
I like that better.
When it happens.
Yes.
Because
it's going to happen.
We need to
And
manifest this.
It'll be something to see.
But as I had brought up AI earlier, though, like I want to get your opinion on what you thought about this, because like, where do you think this is going? Like, it's not going to put everybody out, but a lot of people, like people like animators and voiceover actors, and some people like that, they're going to start hurting. I think.
I mean, the thing I don't understand, except I 100% do understand it, is how much disdain certain people have for the creative process, mostly because they can't engage in it. So like, I'm all for AI if what AI is doing is like making my travel plans easier. If what AI is doing is like why do you want to replace artists and editors and writers and animators and voiceover artists and all that stuff? Why replace these people?
Yeah.
Why not replace?
Because it's cheaper to let the computer do it.
Except the computer doesn't bring the real emotion and experience.
Yeah, except it also isn't really cheaper because you're still spending gazillions of dollars to invent a thing to replace people you have to spend thousands of dollars to hire. And so it's just like, what is with the antipathy towards people who do this work? And I don't know the reason for it. I don't know where it comes from. I don't think it'll ever get to a place where it'll give you great art. It will give you shitty renditions of bad art. In that, for all the reasons you said, like AI's never at its heartbroken. AI will never make the interesting choice. It will just synthesize old choices and give you some version of what that was. And that is not what we show up for. AI will never give you the red button. Never ever. Because no person in their right mind would write all of these characters down.
Which is why George Martin was the one.
Like, you need somebody who is broken in just the right way to make a connection that you could not possibly predict.
I had a discussion with a friend of mine about this, and he made a point that, to a point from a financial standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, AI makes a ton of sense. Because if you can give somebody the opportunity to create whatever they want right now, okay, as far as content goes, entertainment, what they want to consume. If you want to consume a story of, about a cowboy who gets on an alien ship and saves the galaxy and comes back and makes a barbecue, I don't know, just whatever. You tell AI what you want, and it will give you that content right here and now.
I can give you an even easier example than that. Yesterday, we took a picture with the guy dressed as the Easter Bunny, pretending like we were beating him up like in Mallrats, right? This morning, I sent him a video of that same picture, but it continues on. We knock him down and start stomping on his nuts. None of that happened.
Which was if you look at the video, it's the most gentle nut stomping that you've ever seen in your life.
But none of that happened.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just
Chuck Jones used to say that that every artist has 10,000 bad drawings in them before they get good.
Mhm.
And so the key is to burn through those 10,000 bad drawings as fast as you can. There requires a certain amount of sunk costs
Mhm.
before you get to the point where you can be good at a thing, where you have mastered a thing. AI gives you fake mastery,
Mhm.
and it doesn't make you any better at coming up with an idea for a thing. It just lets you execute it, which I suppose if what you're using it for is to try to get better at a thing, maybe. I feel like it will convince people they're good at a thing when they're actually not.
Well, and that's
And like if I'm going to make a short film, I have to convince 60 other people that the thing that I want to do makes sense, and that they have to believe in me, that I can execute it, they have to believe in the idea, they have to buy in. AI requires no buy-in. And so I'm afraid that what will happen is people will make shitty art and then get used to shitty art, to the exclusion of people who actually make good stuff.
and AI is not creating anything. Like you said, it's rehashing.
Yeah, that's
Other
not even
ideas.
talking about the copyright implications and the theft implications and all of that stuff. But like, I know sound editors who are like, oh, we use it all the time. Because if I have to get rid of the sound of a plane flying over the set, I could do that by hand. It would take me months to erase the clatter of a pass-by
Just
train.
that track.
But to isolate that string of audio and pull it out, like AI should do that all day. But it's the like,
Well, like you said, if it's helping me make my travel plans or making my life easier, yes.
Giving me a good recipe.
Taking away my livelihood
yeah,
is a whole other story.
it's every time I see Boston Dynamics inventing some new robot that can climb up and down stairs. It's like, guys, why are you doing this? Like, why have you not seen?
The best thing we ever
a
did.
video like that, there's always another video of somebody knocking it down just for fun.
Yeah,
The best thing we ever did was put wheels on robots, because then they can't go upstairs. That's how we keep robots from taking over
They were
the
stopped
world.
R2.
yeah. Like,
R2 only had jet rocket boosters in the prequels.
I did have a thought though. I mean, AI could create more script doctors.
Oh, they 100% will.
You could, have AI be like, all right, whether I like it or not, AI wrote the script, but it's not right. You
And
still
if
need
you-
a human.
If you've
put
ever
that
read
emotion in
something
there,
that
put that-
AI writes,
Yeah.
like AI actually puts stuff together, you actually have to go through and proofread what AI wrote for
I
you.
mean, a
because-
friend of mine's a stand-up comedian. He was like, I asked AI to write me a joke. I asked ChatGPT to write me a
Oh
joke,
God.
and he was like, it wasn't funny, but the structure was there.
Yeah.
Because you can synthesize, set up punchline. You can understand, like, this is what jokes do, but it wasn't funny.
Yeah.
Like, even almost a little bit.
Like it had the potential, but it wasn't.
somehow the punchline was Purple Monkey Dishwasher, and it made no sense to the rest of the joke.
Yeah. So, like, I'm always concerned about it. Not quite fearful yet, but always just like, why are we chasing down this path so hard if what the average person will use it for is to pull random passerbys out of their family photos? But hey,
Which
sure,
I have done recently. It worked great on my ex-wife.
but like, I don't want to. Every time I call customer service, I don't want it to be an AI. I want it to be a bot that I talk to, because at some point I need a human person to listen to me, whatever my problem is.
And that drives me nuts with my day-to-day job is if you call in, like I have to deal with FedEx and things like that. So if I have to call FedEx, I have no way at all of contacting a human being.
Oh, I don't give a damn. I just keep hitting zero
No,
until I get one.
there is no zero. There is no zero. It's we didn't recognize your entry. Please tell us what you want. And you can't even push buttons anymore. It's you have to tell it what you want. Now it has to understand your voice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, hey, I need to talk to somebody about tracking.
God forbid you have a cold or something.
You want snack information? No, I want tracking. Get me somebody within tracking.
Yeah, and like all of this is shitty, but then when it starts to spread into like healthcare, and now suddenly I have to be arguing with a robot about life-altering or life-saving medications that they don't understand the peculiarities of the human condition.
I'm waiting for the first AI 911 operator.
Yeah.
911. How can we help you? Please state the nature of your emergency. I'm dying.
this is a fire, please press 1.
Right. It all sounds like bad sci-fi, except we are perilously close to Judgment Day.
Leading back again into Black Mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all bad, but hopefully it won't get worse, except it totally will. Because we are in the beginning of a century, and the beginnings of centuries always suck. Yes. The ends of them are great.
At least we're reaching the
End of the beginning.
of the century.
Because at the beginning of the century, we're building up our empire.
Yes.
And now it's eating.
And
Now it's
now
eating
we're-
itself from the inside out.
Yes. And then the stock market crashed, and then the Great Depression, and then a couple of world wars, and then everything will be fine.
Crap, we're coming up on World Wars again.
Like a plan and a covenant.
Yep.
Collapsing it out.
Just, can we get to the 2070s when disco's back?
Robo
I
disco.
didn't get to enjoy disco, so I'm down with that.
I don't know if anybody
Yeah.
enjoyed disco.
There are people that, well, they were high as kites, but they enjoyed disco.
You got to remember the rise of disco really was directly related to the rise of cocaine and heroin.
And also the complete lack of venereal diseases that really like put you on your back. You know?
Oh, those came too.
Oh, they did.
Shortly thereafter.
They showed up in the 80s.
Yes.
70s were great though.
So one of the last thing I want to ask you about here today, because I had heard some great stories about this. You interned on Star Trek Next Gen.
I did, yeah. Next Gen and DS9. It was like season 7 of Next Gen, but it was also the summer that they were shooting the first episodes of DS9.
I hate asking people to repeat stories, but it's one of my favorite ones you've ever told, and I don't know if he's heard it or if many others from ours have heard it, but you got denied a request.
I did. I showed up there. It was the summer between my junior and senior. I was a massive Next Generation fan, and I was like, listen, all I want. I was spending like 8 weeks interning on Next Gen. It's like I really want a picture sitting in the captain's chair of the USS Enterprise. And I was like, you know, at the beginning of my internship, like that's kind of all I want. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do.
So, I don't want to cut you out, but were you working under Braga at this point?
It was still Michael Piller who was running the show.
Okay.
Brannon was on the staff, but he wasn't like
He wasn't in charge.
He wasn't in charge.
Okay. It's the little bit that I know about.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
but so I did my time, and it was a wonderful time. It was great. I learned so much. I met some wonderful people. You know, I got to pitch stories for Next Generation and DS9, any of which made it to the air, but I still got to be in the room where it happens. And my last week, they were, you know, some VIPs had come in and they were doing a tour, and they were like, hey, all right, you want to come on a tour of the sets? And I said, hell yeah, I do. And we're walking through, and there we are on the bridge. And I asked the tour guide, I was like, hey, can I just take a picture? Like, real quick, I don't want to trouble anybody. The tour guide says, you know, Mr. Stewart feels very possessive of that seat. You know, for him, Star Trek is Shakespeare, and that is his throne. And he very much doesn't, you know, appreciate other people sitting there. Okay, I understand. Like dejected, I'm kind of walking off, and as we're exiting the sets, I look off to my left, and this was again like season 8 of DS9, and they had just shot the Relics episode, which is the episode that brings Scotty back into Next Gen. For the
Loved
first time.
that episode.
And there's the sequence when like Scotty, who is like a man out of time, is kind of dejected by everybody, goes to the holodeck, and in order for him to go to his happy place, he has the holodeck to recreate the bridge of the Enterprise. No bloody A, bloody B, bloody C, 1701, period. And then the holodeck creates for him his bridge, the classic TOS bridge.
I gotta ask, just because I didn't watch all of it. I watched a lot of it because my mother-in-law was addicted to it.
Mm.
Was that Doohan?
Yeah.
Okay.
They brought Jimmy back. He was stuck in a transporter buffer, and they just pulled him back. But yeah, it was James Doohan, like rolling on the bridge of Picard's Enterprise.
Looked a lot more like he did in the movies than he did ever on the series.
He's one of my favorite characters, and there's I'll let you finish, but there's a great little story about him because he was a war vet, and he was missing 3 of his fingers on one of his hands, and he would still go to cons and sign all day long. It just didn't matter. But there was a girl who sent him a letter talking about how, you know, she was suicidal and she was thinking about ending her life and this and that. And he responded back to her and asked her, you know, can you please hold off? Please don't do that. You know, come visit me at the con. Let's talk. And for 8 years, continued to invite this girl to different cons and checking on her and being almost like her own personal, I don't want to say psychologist, but like, like her support buddy until he stopped hearing from her after about 8 years. And I thought she, unfortunately, went down the wrong path. 5 years later, gets back to her. She's graduating and becoming an engineer. He saved this girl's life. And it's just, I always thought that was one of the coolest stories,
That's beautiful. But I did not get to meet him because they had already shot him down. But what was still there was the 1/4 of the set that they had built. Because they only shot it from one angle, so they didn't even build the back of it. But they built, one side of the bridge, and they built Kirk's chair. And I sat in Kirk's chair and farted in Kirk's chair. And I was like, you know what, you want me to sit in that one? I'm going to sit in this one. I'm going to wear an ass groove in it. I'm going to fucking leave my mark on Star Trek. That is, and I remember telling that story to Terry Metalis when I first interviewed to work on Star Trek Picard, because he had a replica of the captain's chair from the Enterprise in his office. And I was like, I'll tell you about that chair. I might fart in that chair too.
No, that's an amazing story. I love that. Because if there was ever a television show that I would have liked to just walk the set and seen things, it probably would have been TNG.
Yeah,
I kind of grew up and cut my sci-fi teeth on TNG. So
that was the one. I mean, that I think for many of us that was mother's milk. If you were of a certain age, that was your real entry into science fiction.
And then there was so much that came after that. Like, I mean, if I could go, if they still had the sets for Firefly, I'd be all over it. Things like that.
The other interesting part about that stretch was, again, I was also on DS9 because Next Gen was like deep into its season already, but DS9 was just beginning. They had shot the pilot, but they were beginning to pitch stories for new episodes, whatever. And I got to be there on the stages because they had built it. The Promenade was a massive set, 2 stories. It was real, like they built it. And like I walk on that set with Ira Bear as a showrunner. He's like, "Can we turn it on?" Yeah. And like some dude flips a switch and it goes from like the darkness of just, it's an empty soundstage to like you're in the middle of Space Mall. Wow. It's just, and then
it's like a carnival ride.
Yeah, like everything lights up. It's like, that's cool. It's like, I would turn off.
I don't know why.
Like you saw it, now we're done.
Yeah.
I don't know why for what reason, but I mean, maybe it's the cinephile. All the Star Trek movies, I've loved all of them, but I could never get into the shows for some reason. Like, and I tried very hard.
I mean, I think the thing about the shows is that they existed at a time in which shows required a certain amount of time to find themselves.
Yes.
For Star Trek, it was seasons long. Right?
Yes.
The first
it was third season of Next Generation before they really hit their stride.
Yeah, it's like the very tail end of season 2, you get a couple of really good episodes, but then by season 3, they kind of figured it out. Same thing with DS9. It required, ironically and sadly, the death of Gene Roddenberry for DS9 to kind of become what it was.
But part of the beauty of DS9 and why that works is because Roddenberry was almost militant about his vision.
Yes.
We are utopian. We do not fight. We do not have war. There is nothing bad that ever is going to happen except things that can be solved in an hour. That's it. And then eventually, when you got guys like Braga taking over, they were able to inject a little bit more realism into it, for lack of a better phrase. The human condition becomes more part of it.
Yeah, I mean, Next Gen was always still somewhat episodic, but DS9 got to be the one where they could tell season-long stories. And they were about like occupation and terrorism and espionage and genetic manipulation and drug use, and like they got to get dark in a way that
putting jump to season 4.
Yeah,
setting your show, setting your main conflict, your main hook of the show as being right on the border of unknown space, because Deep Space Nine was a space station that was right by a wormhole that would open and close periodically. But you're going through this wormhole into space, into a section of space that hasn't been explored. Thank you, by the Federation. There's civilizations out there. There's people out there. They're coming through just as you're going out, and there's inevitably going to be conflict.
Yeah, like the easiest marker for that show is on season 1, Avery Brooks, who plays Commander Sisko. His face is clean shaven. He's got like a full head of hair. The closer he got to looking like Hawk from Spencer for Hire, he shaved his head again and grew the goatee. When it's a
Beautiful.
bald head goatee, that's the version I show you want to watch. And that's about like midway through season
when
2.
Shaft starts running the space station,
Yeah.
that's when shit's about to get real.
Then it's like, oh, what were we hiding? What were we pretending that this is gonna be like the Good Dad show? Now it's just fucking like horrors in space on the edge of the unknown.
But there was a certain level of the Good Dad show that was involved there because he's still trying to raise a son.
Yes, single dad
In a war zone, essentially.
I also kind of heard that it took a couple of seasons before Patrick Stewart like loosened up, like and stopped being so Mr. Acting. And,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
because,
all of
like,
it-
I don't
I
know
could
if
have
he
fun
ever
with
really
this.
fully loosened up in that situation, but he's like you said, that's his Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he, like everybody else, I think, figured out what their speed was and how they were going to be part of this ensemble. And the writers understood how to write for everybody else. Worf became a much more important character, and the Klingons and all that stuff. Like they discovered the show a couple of years into making.
And they really cracked into the lore.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. No
Um,
pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Star Trek person, it's worth kind of giving it a second try. If you're not, you're never going to be.
Right.
But if you are, it's probably worth. And if you have the patience for it, you know.
Just make sure that your Alexa is not set to respond to computer.
Yes.
I made that mistake. I thought it would be cool to have my Alexa when hey computer, do this. And then I started watching Star Trek again and I'm like, shut up.
Yes.
I don't know if you know the band Bowling for Soup, but we did an interview with the lead singer Jarrett Reddick, and he has an Alexa in his office next to him. And he's telling us a story about working with the female pro wrestler Alexa Bliss, and it just keeps triggering it off of the face. He's like, "Shut up, Alexa!" Shut up." So completely left
Gotta
all
love
that
our
in still.
technology.
You know, again, we're trying to make things better
So-
and it only makes things worse.
we don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you have we know you have a panel that you got to go do and we want to give you some time to relax before you do that. But last time you were here, we
We
typically
ended with
close
the Bernard Pivot
Yeah.
questionnaire that,
Yes.
that we stole from James Lipton.
which
That's one
because we are horrible podcasters and don't know how to finish our podcasts. Unfortunately, we can't do that again because you've already answered those questions.
I have indeed, although I don't remember those answers. So
Which is fine. You can go listen to them on the
there you
podcast.
go. The young Couture.
But we did come up with a new way to end the podcast for a repeat guest. So,
Okay.
Tristan, you want to give him a
So
rundown?
we're curious, what would be your Mount Rushmore of writing projects that you would like to do if you had your pick of the litter?
Am I locked temporally
You're
in
not
space
locked
and time?
anywhere.
anytime, any place, any people, if you could go and write anything you wanted to.
Well,
Top 4 things.
I'll tell you the 4 writing staffs I wish I could have been on. The West Wing.
Such a good show.
I would
You know, especially like, granted, the first 4 seasons, Aaron Sorkin wrote all that show himself, so like, I don't know how much fun it would be to be on
the
that
man
set.
has a knack for dialogue that nobody can match.
Yeah, I mean, it's god tier work,
That's one of the few dramas I could rewatch the whole series.
and I have
Multiple times.
multiple times. But I think some of the later seasons after Aaron Sorkin left, and John Wells was running the show, and it's rocky for a couple of years, but then it kind of finds itself again. But there was a proper writing staff that were doing like the job of like, let's let people write shows. That would have been amazing. Battlestar is always going to be high on that list of I mean, it is.
I never
it is-
got into Battlestar. That was
It much like Star Trek. It is the Star Trek that Star Trek people made, not bound by the rules of Star Trek. You know,
makes a
'cause
certain amount of sense.
it's Ron Moore who cut his teeth on Next Gen and helped redefine DS9, and then unburdened by no conflict in space, nobody does drugs, everybody's fine. And that is that show.
If you remove the Roddenberry from Star Trek,
If you take the rod out of Roddenberry's ass and decide to like really lean into the broken humans trying to save.
nothing but respect for Mr. Roddenberry.
Oh hell yeah! But like he was a bit stiff in ways that
Very much.
you know,
Again, almost militant in his lack of conflict.
because he was a military guy, and so I understand his desire to stick to his guns. But those two, I think Buffy might have been really interesting. as much as I'm more of a Firefly guy, I think some of those mid seasons of Buffy are as good as TV got. And for the fourth one,
For all the negatives that Joss Whedon has been accused of, and maybe I don't know if it's rightfully so or not, but the man could write. The man could create.
He very much could. I think for the fourth one, did you ever see? It was a show on Showtime. I want to say Showtime, called Penny Dreadful.
Yes. Penny Dreadful is fantastic.
It is this astonishing kind of reinvention and reexamination of the Victorian heroes of the day. It's like Dorian Gray and Frankenstein's monster, and it's really astonishing work. But looking at the way and how you can reinvest an audience in characters that they're intimately familiar with by treating them as if they're real, by treating them as if their story didn't end in the last chapter of the book. And so where could these characters have gone? What could their issues and dramas have been? What is it like to be a man who doesn't know he's a man, who's trying to earn his way to humanity, but fails because he doesn't have all of the right stuff? I think it's a fascinating show, and to just get to do that kind of thing. And honorable mention, I'll mention Kings, which is a very short-lived show on NBC, but it was the story of King David, sort of recontextualized as a modern sort of empire that takes place in a Manhattan that is not Manhattan, called Shiloh, but Ian McShane doing god-tier work.
Ian McShane is so good.
Ian McShane is great. Sebastian Stan is in that show. Brian Cox is in that show. It was created by Michael Green, who's now the showrunner, co-creator of Blue Eye Samurai. So all of those speeches are like arias, and all those characters are amazing. Yeah, that shows a miracle that NBC of all places ever made a show like that. But yeah, those are my Mount Rushmores, and then the tiny gift shop off the side of Mount Rushmore.
The little place where they store all the documents.
Yes, 100%.
I think a great one, just because listening to you talk on the podcast about your different writing process and your thought about stuff, I think I could have enjoyed you having a run on the show Elementary.
I have a friend who actually worked on that show, a guy that I met
loved that show
back on the DS9 days, Robert Hewitt Wolf, and he had a blast on that show. I don't know if I'm a procedural guy or not. They're like, we're doing an episode a week and it's new case of the week. But I love Sherlock Holmes, and any version of Sherlock Holmes I kind of swim with. And so
that modern day take on it was always very interesting to me.
Yeah, sometimes it works.
Took to it.
Sometimes it doesn't. Like I'm not in love with that Watson show.
I was going to say they've had a lot of clones to it that just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But Johnny Lee Miller's, you're not going to beat that for a modern day.
I mean, from a guy that went from Hackers to Elementary, such a great career.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Always fun.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad we can make this an annual thing.
Yes.
I look forward to the new version of the questionnaire next
we'll
year.
work something out.
All right, I guess we're saying it now. 1 year. All right, we'll see you back next year.
We have 364 days.